be teaching you the post-colonial literature paper, and I've been teaching this for past many years, and this is the first time I think I'm teaching it without my students in front of me. You know, this is a very emotional class for me, because post-colonialism is very close to my heart. After my post-graduation, I happened to attend one conference in Madras University where I first heard the word post-colonialism. So this is a very, in 1990s, a very new concept that was introduced in Indian academia, especially in the English departments of Indian universities. So to understand this and to this concept is a little bit, we need to have a little bit idea of history. We all know that India is a country that had waged a freedom struggle against the British colonialism. And after long years of struggle, we became independent. And now many historians call such countries that have won their independence after the colonialism as post-colonial nations. You know, the word post means after, later. It has that meaning also. So after colonialism. But here is a catch. Here is a little bit complication. Post here doesn't mean that we do not discuss, or it is not important, that the period during the British colonialism. This word post-colonialism has now come to mean that the entire period after the occupation of the British or the European powers over third world countries. So we know that we are all called third world countries. India, Caribbean countries, many Asian countries, all these are called third world countries. So European colonialism, we all know, has started long back in the 16th century and has occupied almost 85% or 90% of the world throughout the Asia, Africa, South America, Caribbean, or not to speak of Australia, New Zealand, United States of America, etc. So colonialism is something where we should first understand what is colonialism. So, you know, colonialism is something that is it is derived from the word colonus, a Latin word colonus, which means in the ancient times, in the Latin meaning is that some people used to go, some villagers used to go and settle in a far away place for the sake of agriculture or for the sake of farming. You know, even in India also, even in Andhra Pradesh also, you know, around us also, many people go have a small place. I'm not speaking about farmhouses, but where some people go and settle in the farm for farming practices and for their cattle, for the sake of their cattle. So in Telugu, we use the word makam. Have you heard the word? So that is the meaning of that. Colonialism is actually derived from that. So in the ancient Latin times or in the Greek times, people used to go for farming activities to far off places. They used to go away from their homes in towns or villages to live in the farms, to graze their animals and to take care of their farms. So that from that we get the word colonus, or means colonial. So in England, in the 16th century onwards, many of these nations, European nations, have started, going around the world, establishing their colonies, first in the name of trade, and second in the name of God, and third again in the name of imperial domination. So like that, colonialism has taken its roots from 16th and 17th centuries, and you find widespread colonization during these centuries. By 18th century or 19th century, we find colonialism completely rooted in Africa, in Asia, and America, South America, and other parts of the world. So much so that England got the adage that the sun never sets on the British Empire. That means England is everywhere. The sun is wherever the sun is, because there is no sun setting. Because if it starts from Japan and moves on to Asia and to Africa and to Caribbean to the Americas, wherever the sun is moving, the British are there. So the sun never sets on the British Empire. That's what people used to call. By that you can understand how big their colonization was, how large their colonization was. So colonialism has, the word colonialism means exploiting other countries for their resources, for their agricultural resources, their mineral resources, their forest resources, human resources also. The bodies of the foreign, the third world country, people living in the third world countries, their agricultural produce, their forest produce, everything will be exploited for the sake of the colonial master. As you know, when the British have occupied India, they exploited our forests, they exploited our farmers, they exploited our people, they destroyed our cultures, and we know all this has happened during the period of colonization. And second thing that we should note when we discuss post-colonialism, when we discuss colonialism, is that imperialism. There is a slight difference with these. These are two important words that we have to note when we discuss post-colonialism. One is colonialism and second one is imperialism. Colonialism is an occupation of another country and the exploitation of its material resources. Whereas imperialism is an occupation of mind, is an ideological occupation. It is a cultural occupation. It is an exploit with the intention, thinking that the people who are occupied are inferior to the people who have occupied. Okay, so the Europeans are superior to the people of Africa or Asia because they are occupied, they are ruled over, they are backward, their culture is very much inferior, whereas the European culture is superior. The European race is superior. So it's an ideological term. Imperialism is an ideological term. Colonialism is a material term, because colonialism means occupation of the other country, third world countries or the colonized countries for their material resources. Imperialism means occupation of the minds, the culture, okay, and with the intent that they are people inferior, and with the intent that they have to give them a civilization, with the intent that they have to develop the culture of the occupied people. So these are the two words that we should note here. They are very important: culture, colonialism and imperialism. So when we come to post-colonialism, the word doesn't mean the word. Actually, the word has its origin from the economists and from historians, because when the historians wanted to distinguish colonialism and the post-independent period, pre-independence period and post-independence period, they used this word pre-colonial and post-colonial with a hyphen in between, post-colonial. Similarly, the economists also used this word with a hyphen in between, stating that in the during the colonial period, how the material resources of the country, the occupied country, were exploited, and how after the occupation, after the independence, how these nations tried to become economically independent. So that is a post-colonial nation. So this word has actually its origins in economics and history. Literature departments have picked up the word in only 1990s. We have three important theorists, intellectuals who are associated with, who have propagated this word post-colonialism, who are associated with the theoretical background of this word post-colonialism, and who are also responsible for spreading of this post-colonial term and start a new discipline, a new field of study in English literature. Is the three persons are: number one is Edward Said. I hope you are all noting down. Please note down the names. Edward Said. And second one is Gayatri Spivak. And the third one is Homi Bhabha. First, Edward Said is a Palestinian from the present day Israel, who had his education in for some time in Palestine and then in Egypt and then again in America. And he wrote a wonderful book in 1977, which has actually inaugurated this discipline or this field of study called post-colonialism. I have that book with me. Maybe you also can read this book. This is a very important book called Orientalism. Okay, do we have this in our library also? Please read this book. At least the first chapter is very important. I will come to this book later on, but first let us see the three important theories. And second one is Gayatri Spivak. Gayatri Spivak is an Indian. She was born in India, educated at the University of Calcutta, and then moved on to Canada, and then now she is working as a professor in the Columbia University, United States of America. And she has written a seminal essay called Can the Subaltern Speak? You note down the essay also? Can the Subaltern Speak? I think you have it in your literary criticism paper, maybe in the next semester or this semester. And subaltern means, is a junior or an inferior officer who are outside the power structure. So, for example, the ordinary farmers in India, they're outside the power structure. The politicians, the bureaucrats, the officers, all of them come to the power structure. So, these farmers do not have a voice. Their voice is not heard. They cannot represent themselves. So, such people are called subalterns. Say, for example, you are housemaid working in your house. She may not be having the voice to represent her own self. So, she is called a subaltern. So, Gayatri Spivak was questioning in this essay, can the subaltern speak? Can the ordinary people speak at all? And even if they speak also, is their speech heard by all of us because they remain out of the power structure? So that is her contribution. I will discuss further in detail more of this essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? Especially from a feminist point of view, we need to discuss that one. And third one is Homi Bhabha. Homi Bhabha is another great theorist. He also was born in India and had his education in India in the University of Mumbai. From Mumbai, he has shifted to America, had his education in the University of Columbia, and now he is the professor of the director of the humanities in Harvard University, my alma mater, where I had my research, where I did my research. So he was the director of the humanities department in Harvard University. Now he's still there. So of these three, Edward Said was no more, but Gayatri Spivak and Homi Bhabha are still working in American and Canadian universities even now. So their contribution was has inaugurated, all these three people have inaugurated, have established what is this discipline called, this field of study called the post-colonial studies or post-colonial literature and post-colonial writings. So many words are associated with this word post-colonial. So I hope you now understand what we mean by colonization, imperialism, and when we come to the word post-colonialism, you should understand that the European occupation of these countries is not just a political occupation, is not just a control, a rule, a colonial rule of the white people, or say, for example, the European people over these third world countries. The occupation is not just a political occupation. The occupation is not just merely exploitation of our resources, of our wealthy resources, our gold, our minerals, our farm produce, our forest produce, our human resources. Okay, it's not just exploitation of these resources, but the colonial occupation also means an occupation of our minds. This is very important. This is what post-colonial studies discuss more often, because historians, of course, discuss the material occupation of our countries by the European powers, and economists can discuss about how what is the economic situation when the British have come and when they have left us. If I have to quote Shashi Tharoor, I mean, from the present Congress MP, who is also a great writer, he has given a wonderful statement, or in a wonderful debate in Oxford University. He made a statement that he has brought the statement from the statistics from the economic research stating that when the British have come to occupy India, India's contribution to the world economy was 23%. Mind you, India's contribution to the world economy was 23%. And by the time they left India in 1947, India's contribution to the world economy was only 4%. By this, you can understand how much our economic situation was degraded, destroyed by the colonial rule. So we are not going to discuss here about the exploitation of our material resources. Of course, sometimes I may refer to those exploitation also, because when, for example, when there are certain texts in your syllabus now, which I'm in this paper, where they speak about the exploitation of material resources also. So then I will be coming to that point. In fact, if I may have to give you an example, many of our forests were cut down by the British, by the colonial occupation, to lay railway lines and to develop tea estates. You may say, now, sir, but those two are useful for us. Okay, but not only those forests were cut down for our railway lines, but also for the railway lines in England and various other colonies of England. So huge forests of the country were cut down. India was once upon a time, we had forests of almost 80 to 90% of forest coverage, but now we are reduced to 25%. So, and much of it has happened during the British times, and even now, of course, it's going on. I'm not denying that fact. And again, because I happened to work in Arunachal Pradesh, I know how those beautiful forests of Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, and all the northeastern states were cut down to grow the tea estates. You know how, because remember one thing, colonization is not just a political occupation, it is a political rule. It is colonization of our minds, colonization of our culture, colonization of our food, our taste, our dressing, the way we behave, our language, everything will be colonized. So this is the most important aspect of colonization. Today, if we are speaking in English, it is because of colonization. Today, if our Telugu language is consisting of almost 50% of English words, it is because of colonial occupation, colonization. Today, if we are drinking tea and coffee, mind you, let me tell you once again that 100 years ago, we never drank tea or coffee. Or 120 years, let us say. We never drank. Indians never had the habit of drinking tea and coffee. This is something of a European culture, in European import, or because a result of the European colonization. So this is a colonization of our taste, because we never drank that. But now we got habituated to that, so that we are continuing the same colonial, exploitation of our forest resources. For example, you can know that in one second. Yeah, you know that even now we are cutting down all our forests to grow coffee and tea plantation. In fact, today many environmentalists are saying that the floods, the heavy floods in Kerala are because of the cutting down of the forest, the landslides and avalanches that you are seeing in Kerala now, and the heavy floods now are the result of our cutting down the forests and growing tea estates and coffee estates. So this was a result of the colonization, and because we are so habituated to in coffee now that we are almost not able to live without them, so that we are now cutting down our own forests and living on that. So in a way, and many of our animals were destroyed. Many new plant species were introduced here. All this is also nothing but ecological colonization. So I'll come to that subsequently later on. But now try to understand this concept called post-colonialism. So post-colonialism is the word that we use for the changes, the cultural changes, the ideological changes, the changes of the mindset that happened after the occupation of the of our country, of third world countries, for example, Africa or India or Caribbean regions, by the European powers, and the changes that has come over. So it does not mean, the post here does not mean only post-independence, post-independent period, but the period, the moment when the British have stepped, not only the British, but the French or British or any of these European countries have stepped into the third world and has occupied those countries. for a colonial exploitation and for the changes that they have brought in the mindset, in the lives of these people, how they were, the lives and the living style of these people was affected by this colonialism. So if you can just note down, not just listening here, because I want to give you, it is the term means here, I'm giving it from a book. The definition means that it is to signify the word post-colonialism signifies the political, linguistic and cultural experience of societies that were former European colonies. So the political experience, okay, the cultural experience and the linguistic experience. And I mean, this definition is very limited, but you can now extend it to the ecological experience, because our ecology was also influenced by the colonization. So how these changes have taken place, and the very perception, the way we look at the world has completely changed because of the European colonization. So those texts, those theories that discuss the impact of European colonization over these third world countries come under post-colonial literature. So there are novels, there is poetry, short stories, vast corpus of literature was produced to not, I mean, they don't, I mean, literary writers don't write it saying that my textbook belongs to post-colonial studies, nothing like that. But because this field has opened up, and now we understand how these writers were influenced by the thought and how they portray the impact of colonization on the people. Today, for example, if I am wearing a trouser and a shirt, that is because of colonization. Today, if I am drinking tea and coffee, that is because of European colonization. Today, if your forest eating habits have changed, that is because of colonization. And today, if we have, I mean, what's called changes in our linguistics, in our language, that is because of colonization. So this impact needs to be studied. And today, if our country is in poverty, today, if we have corruption in our country, that is because of colonization. You may say, sir, don't we have corruption before colonization? I say, no. There is no corruption in India before European colonization. The one reason for that, and you all know as students of English language and literature, you should know this point, that after the British have occupied our country, because even though you have to understand, when I speak about colonization and when I give example, that is Indian example, you should also remember that the same is true with other countries also, like in Africa or the Caribbean region. When the British have occupied our country, their language and their culture is English, whereas our people do not know English. So when they occupied that, they promoted a group of people who can come as translators between the Telugu speaking, I mean, I'm giving our own example here, Andhra example here, Telugu speaking people here, and the rulers are English, and there are in between some people who know English and Telugu, they are the translators. So you will come to know in the text, Things Fall Apart, how corruption was promoted during the colonial times. And in the post-independence period also, that corruption is going on, even now also in our country. Why? The reason is the language barrier. The ruler says one thing, the interpreter makes it another thing, and finally the people who are being ruled, understands it in a different manner. So much so that even now also in India, all our government GOs are released in English language, not in Telugu. And nobody understands them. Ordinary people cannot understand them. The language in the court of law is English, not in Telugu. And so people cannot understand that. So why? See, and when it comes to interpretation, for example, in the previous times when there was a drought before the British have come in India, in our own, for example, in our university area or in the Rajanagaram area, there is a drought. There are no rains, there are no water, and the fields were dry. There was no water for cattle, so people are, starving. So what happens? They go and report the same to the king, who speaks the same language in Telugu. Sir, we cannot pay you taxes this year because we don't have good rains. Our crops have failed. many people are starving, so we cannot pay you taxes. So there is a direct communication between the people who are affected and the ruler. The people of, for example, the Rajanagaram area and the king, the Pitapuram king, who is very close by. Maybe he was the ruler for them. So they will go and directly tell to the king, sir, we cannot pay you taxes. But when the British East India Company was ruling here, the district collector, who is an Englishman, does not understand Telugu. The rights, the people, the villages, the farmers, they try to go and report the same to the district collector, who does not understand their language, who does not understand their agony. So he says nothing doing, because East India Company is a trading company and it depends only upon profits. So if people don't pay taxes, that is the profit for the East India Company. If people don't pay profit, the East India Company will lose its profit. So the district collector will say, nothing doing. You have to pay your taxes at any cost. So like that, the language has become a barrier between the rulers and the ruled, foreign influence. So, I mean, I just give you one example to understand the impact. And that impact, that the starvation, because people are not able to understand what the king is saying, that led to migrations, that led to people changing their occupations, and that led to people becoming losing their lands. If they don't pay taxes, their lands were taken away. You have seen it in, maybe you must have read it in the history books also, how people, how the British used to take away their lands if they cannot pay the taxes. So like that, demographical changes have happened. People migrated from places to, from in search of food and shelter, and droughts and famines. So, you know, after the British have occupied India, there are numerous times of famine that have broken out in our country. So anyhow, we'll come to that subsequently, but try to understand this term post-colonialism, that it deals with the experience of the ruled people, the experience of the people, of the colonized people, both ideologically, culturally, politically, linguistically, and in every sphere of their lives. So, I mean, our tastes are colonized, our dressing pattern was colonized, our relationships are colonized, our, I mean, food behavior is colonized, our minds are colonized completely. So, in a way, we are now half British and half Indians. I mean, I'm not exaggerating if I say that we are half British and half Indians. So, this is the way, I mean, post-colonialism. And so, this term, this is an umbrella term, post-colonialism, which deals with the experience of these people over this period. And the span of this period can be from the moment people, I mean, Britain, England, I mean, Europe countries have started occupying these third world countries. You know that there is a Indian history that Vasco da Gama has come to India in 1492. So that was European colonization has started. So, and you know that not only England, but many other countries, for many other European countries, France, for example, Portugal, I mean, Spain, okay, Dutch, the Portuguese, all of them have come to India, the Holland. So, I think our East Coast, you know, our own districts, Krishna, Godavari districts are important centers of European colonization. We have many places in the names of those European colonies, because the French have come to India, the Dutch have come, the Portuguese have come, the Spanish have come, but of course, finally, it was the British who could drive away all these people and come and remain the final authority or the final rule. And they ruled for almost 200 years and impacting every aspect of our life, every walk of our life. I mean, there is no place which was not influenced by the British today. And I mean, when I'm speaking about the example of India, mind you, when we are speaking post-colonial literature and post-colonial studies, this is not restricted only to India, but other third world countries as well, like I mean, like Caribbean, like the Africa, and mostly and other Asian countries like Sri Lanka, etc. Okay, so this is the idea that you should develop, and I will be happy if all of you can read something on. There are many YouTube videos also on. You can watch that online. On if you just type in the YouTube post-colonialism, there will be wonderful lectures by various professors on post-colonialism, colonization, imperialism, and also you can see on YouTube Edward Said, Homi Baba, and even Gayatri Spivak also. Their lectures are also there on the YouTube. Try to listen to them, and I will close this session for this with this brief introduction, and I will be happy if you have any questions to ask. Okay, so all of you can raise questions. You can unmute yourselves and ask me questions on post-colonialism or any other topics that I have discussed so far. Chandu?
Sir.
Hello. Yeah, please respond.
Sir, hello.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
Hello.
Yeah, please raise any questions. You have any questions to ask?
Sir, Srinivas, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Sir, post-colonialism up to which period, sir?
See, there is no period as such. See, even now also we are a post-colonial nation, and we are still being influenced by the, even though the people are, Britishers are not ruling us, even though the French are not ruling us, we are still under their influence, directly or indirectly. Because in the term of globalization, in the term of economic, worldwide markets also, we are still under the influence of colonialism, because as long as we are continuing the habits of the British, okay, we are under their influence. So post-colonialism period does not start somewhere and does not end somewhere. Even if you take, if it is starting period can be the occupation, the colonization period, the ending period is nowhere. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I think Susanna, you want to ask something?
Yes, sir. You said colonialism means materialism, no, sir? What is imperialism means, sir?
Material resources. When I said colonialism is usually an exploitation of material resources, like our forest produce, like of our agricultural produce, like our exploitation of human resources, the human bodies, for example, also were exploited by the European colonization, during the European colonization. For example, the large number of slaves that were taken from Africa to America is nothing but an exploitation of their bodies. So that is a material occupation. When it comes to imperialism, imperialism is also continuing now. Imperialism is an ideological occupation. It's a cultural occupation. So imperialism is based upon the idea that the whites are a superior race. Imperium, the word imperialism comes from the word that was borrowed from the Roman times, where Rome is the capital of the world. Rome is the center of the world. So everything emanates from Rome. Rome is the center. Rome is the metropolis. So everything will be ruled from Rome. Okay. So faraway places, thousands of miles away also, the Roman influence will be felt. So similarly, ideologically also, in the imperialism, for example, the English people will think that they are the most superior race. They are the white race. Their culture is superior. Their language is superior. Their religion is superior. So they are born to rule other people. So this idea is what is called the imperialistic idea. So imperialism pertains more to ideas, to ideological thoughts of superiority and inferiority, of backwardness and culturally advanced, of a superior race and an inferior race, of a superior language and an inferior language. All these ideas are based upon imperialistic thoughts. whereas colonialism deals directly with the material exploitation of the people. You understand my point there? Material exploitation means taking away our resources, taking away our farm
Yes, sir.
produce,
Yes, sir.
taking away our forest produce, etc. So material exploitation. So these two words are actually, I told you the origin of the word colonialism. Colonial is colonus. It comes from the from a Latin word colonus, where
Latin
farmers
word.
go and live in a faraway place for the sake of farming, for the sake of grazing their cattle, for the sake of bringing their forest produce. అంటే మనం తెలుగులో చెప్తాం చూడండి, మకాం వేసామని మకాం అంటాం, వేరే చోట ఉంటాం. So that is colonization. So that is basically a material activity. You go there. Why do you go there to the farm? For the sake of agricultural production, for the sake of grazing your cattle, for milking. Okay. So there you have a makam, or what is called a colony. So that is completely an exploitation of material resources. Whereas imperialism is still continuing also. Okay, so imperialism is the idea that one nation or one king, or usually it is applied to nations only, is superior to other nations. Okay, these days you must have been hearing that China was feeling imperialistic, that it is expansionist. They are thinking that nobody in the world can question us. That is an imperial idea. Maybe some other people like India or America can challenge it, but the idea that nobody can challenge us, that we are rich, that we are superior, that we are culturally very superior, that idea is called imperialism. Did you understand, Susanna?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Any more questions, please?
Sir, one more. Sir,
Yeah.
one more thing, sir. You explained the definition of, sir, political, linguistic, environmental, and
What is that for the post-colonialism?
yes, sir. Definition, sir.
See,
Political,
actually, linguistic, political, and cultural experience of societies that were former European colonies.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, post-colonialism deals with the effects of colonization on the cultures and societies. Okay. So when we are discussing post-colonialism, means here we are going to discuss the effects of colonization. How did colonization affect us on our culture and సంస్కృతి మీద, మన యొక్క సమాజం మీద బ్రిటిష్ వారి యొక్క ఇంపాక్ట్ ఎలా ఉంది, లేదా బ్రిటిష్ వారు యూరోపియన్ యొక్క ఇంపాక్ట్ ఎలా ఉంది, దాని ఎఫెక్ట్ ఎలా ఉంది, how we are influenced by that, how our culture was influenced by that, how our language was influenced by that, how our way of looking at the world was influenced by that, how our dress was influenced by that, how our food was influenced, how our language was influenced. So studying of this influence on these various aspects comes under the umbrella term called post-colonialism. So ఇవన్నీ స్టడీ చేయడం దాన్ని మనం post-colonialism అంటాం. Okay. Any more questions, please? Okay. So shall we sign off? I request all of you to go through the online. There are many postcolonial.net also. There is a website where you can find wonderful resources, and you can read for my next class. Come prepared and read those online resources. YouTube's videos also there. You can listen to them, and you please listen to the debate of Shashi Tharoor. It is there in the YouTube, almost for more than 1 hour. It's a wonderful debate where you'll find how India was exploited by the British. So it's a wonderful lecture. Please read it.
I have one doubt, sir.
Pardon? You heard it?
Yes, one doubt, sir. Small doubt.
Yeah, you heard it, Srinva?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Post-colonialism effect on our culture and our society is something. If, for example, nowadays COVID virus is the China virus. It affects on society. It is also colonization, sir?
No, it is not colonization. I don't call it colonization. Colonization is when people go and live there. For example, The Europeans came and lived there and exploited our resources, right? So you cannot say, you cannot compare that with the virus, spread of virus. The spreading of virus is because can be an effect of colonization in an indirect way, because it started globalization, global markets. So along with the global markets, along with the spread of global markets, there will be spread of diseases also.
Yes.
We are not an isolated world. We are not living in an island where we are cut off from the rest of the world. We are very much connected. So disease also will be connected. Disease also will spread very easily.
Thank
So
you.
this can be an indirect impact of globalization or colonization. Okay. Okay. Let's sign off then. So for the next class, I hope all of you will go through those videos and online resources, and then we can discuss further. Okay. Bye then.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.